and again from like experience, is being able to say sex. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And being able to say penis and vagina without being like a little 12-year-old girl or boy going.
And then like, yeah, no kidding. No, like seriously,
You know, like,
I want to like, we should play like for our listeners right now. Like, I want you to just say out wherever you are, listening to this in your car, at home, in your office, whatever.
Yes.
I just want you to be like, I like sex, or just say the word sex, just right now. Just say sex. And do you giggle? See you fucking giggle. Like, that's hard for some people. Obviously, it's hard for you.
Well, right now it's hard for me because like I'm slightly self-conscious and embarrassed.
Why? Because we're making this podcast?
Yes, and I don't know why. It's just me. It's just like I'm not the type of person to just like talk about like things that make people uncomfortable, and this is something that makes people uncomfortable. So now I'm just kind of like.
Well, we're gonna be more
this
comfortable.
This is the whole
people
purpose of this.
The
Yes.
whole purpose
yes.
of this. Okay, then that's how we're starting this podcast.
Don't look at me like that.
You gotta pretend that you're playing the saxophone when you're doing it.
Again, cutting off my vibe when I'm like
when
enjoying a good song.
When she's
and
feeling
you
it.
just like
feeling it.
It's like the stop of the track.
It's like stopping before you climax.
Oh my God.
Let's start this podcast properly. Welcome to the 75th annual Hunger Games. You see how I did that? That's something new. That was for you, David.
God. You're supposed to say the 75th annual sex
Quataquel. Oh, sex games. Ooh. No, that'd be weird. Ew. How weird. Ew, there's boogers coming out of our nose. Oh my gosh. Well, my name is Jay. I don't have boogers coming out my nose. I think Canada Dry just made your nostrils flare. That's so
And
funny.
I'm Molly.
Nice to meet you, Molly.
I have a lot of allergy problems right now.
Yeah, I don't know how you guys have been managing.
Have any Kleenex.
Yeah, well, you have that whole Harry Potter blanket to destroy today. Yeah, how you guys been doing with this smoke? Like, at least these people in the Midwest, like, we've been struggling the last few days.
My lungs hurt.
Lungs hurt, nostrils hurt. Every night we try to go out and shoot some hoops. We got a friendly competition of free throws and horse and our new game called Sudden Death. Actually, that didn't sound like Sudden Death. Sudden Death.
That's better.
That sounds better. And we couldn't do that for the last couple of days because of this stupid Canadian fires. It was so bad. Almost to the point where it was like, you go outside and it's you take a couple breaths and you're like, man, did I smoke a cigarette? Is what is smoking a cigarette is like?
Yeah, I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I don't either. Yeah. We'll move on
from that subject.
So guys, we're back, and today we're talking about the long anticipated podcast of the year. Jay and Molly talk about
sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Okay, so PSA, this will be as PG as possible, but mom, dad, siblings, maybe you shouldn't be listening.
Yeah, it's gonna get a little sultry, little sexy, a little. Yeah.
That's not sexy right now. I feel like you should have one of those like teeth things.
Oh,
yeah.
Like this on the top,
yes,
like this.
I guess you don't need the teeth things. You just look like it without it.
I know.
Oh my God.
Well, the reason why I want to talk about this topic is because when we first started this podcast, we had topics that we'd talk about.
Yes.
And this was one of them we wanted to talk about because we believe that every couple should have a comfortable space where they can talk about sex with each other away from the bedroom and also cultivate a strong relationship. Yawning already? We're barely even into the podcast. This is going to be a tiring podcast. Hopefully it's not like our sex life. So yeah, we wanted to make this so that other couples can probably break that barrier of hesitancy when it comes to talking about sex.
Yeah. And I think just kind of flowing with the whole purpose of this, excuse me, I just burped, podcast of just like open conversation and being able to have open conversation about your sex life, your sex drive, what you need during sex is just as important as any other conversation in a relationship.
Yeah, for sure. Just to start off, I guess, with this topic, when was the first time that you can remember of sex and just sex in general?
Like learning about it.
It doesn't have to be like sex education, but maybe like the first time you saw something like intimate on TV or kissing and your mom was like, close your eyes. I can speak from experience that happened a lot when I was growing up. Like we would watch TV as a family, and then if there was like a kissing scene, my parents would make me cover our eyes.
I feel like my mom did too, but I don't remember like what age I was and like up until what age she did that. Okay.
I know we were in Hawaii, and so that was before I was 10 years old. So probably, and then Kathy was alive already from what I remember. So probably like 7 or 8, I remember.
Yeah.
We were watching something, and then like somebody would be kissing, a couple would be kissing, and then my parents would be like, cover your eyes.
Just kissing?
Like, kissing, yeah.
Okay.
Just cover your eyes. And then I wanted to watch this movie called Clueless, and we would go to Blockbuster. People who know what Blockbuster is. I wanted to watch this movie Clueless because a couple of my friends were watching it, but I believe it was a rated R movie.
Really?
And my parents wouldn't let me watch it because it was rated R. And so I was very sheltered in that regard to not watch rated R movies. Actually, up until I was maybe middle school, I couldn't watch rated R movies. I watched rated R movies at my friend's house.
It's a PG-13 movie.
Is it PG-13?
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't able to watch that movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I was not limited by that.
Oh. I was.
Yeah.
I think, and we like kind of didn't talk about sex or any stuff like that.
We did, but I feel like we talked more about like my period coming and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
You guys didn't talk about the birds and the bees.
I don't think so.
Yeah, see, I didn't either.
I think we maybe kind of did, but like not in the detail that like, and not that I don't know what detail I mean. I don't know. You know
like
what I mean?
Intercourse.
I don't. Right.
That's
I don't
detailed
know
as
that.
it gets.
Right.
I mean, we never talked about intercourse.
I like vaguely remember like kind of talking about the act with my mom and like what that meant, but like I don't know that I
comprehended it.
Yeah, or like it wasn't like the penis goes in this tiny hole. You know what I mean? Like I don't know that it was like that, or I don't know what I like can just vaguely remember talking about it.
Gotcha.
And it was in more detail than the birds and the bees, but it wasn't.
A school taught me about sex.
Yeah, we had a sex thing too.
The first sex ed class that we had was in 5th grade, and they gave us like
too.
They talked about like
5th or 6th
premature ejaculation.
Oh,
taking good care of your body by like using deodorant and showering and the use of like condoms and stuff. Yeah, they did that in 5th grade, and your parents had to sign off on the slip. And I was like, "Hey, Mom, we need to do this."
They did it without the parents there?
Without the parents there. Yeah. But your parents had to sign the slip that said, "Hey, we're going to talk about sex education. Do you consent of this?" And then all your parents had to do was just sign it, and you bring it. And then the people who couldn't have the little course thing, if the parents didn't sign the paper, they would have like an alternate activity. And then they would put everybody else in like a classroom. And then
So it was girls and boys in the same room?
No,
Okay.
all boys and then all girls.
Yeah.
Because then they would hand out like these little packs, and it was like a small little Old Spice like blue deodorant,
Oh my
and then like a
God.
pamphlet that talked about like the anatomy of the penis and like all this stuff.
God.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Okay, I remember having that class too, but it was after school
Oh,
with parents
okay.
and separate boys and girls, obviously. But I don't remember it being like that, or like I guess I don't know what the equivalent to like the girls would be talking about.
The girls would probably be talking about period.
Yes, but I like
And like,
but
what
like not
that
talking about
to
like
expect.
orgasms or something.
Oh,
So that's
yeah.
what ejaculation is, right? You know, like to an extent.
But they were talking about like nocturnal emissions for us.
Oh, okay.
Because that stuff, like, that's exactly what happens for little boys.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think the equivalent for that, not really for girls, because there's really nothing like that for girls.
I think there is.
Oh,
I mean,
I don't know. No. There's nothing that you guys do at night that is similar to a nocturnal emission for boys.
Okay, I guess explain that to me.
So, you don't know what
I think I do, but I feel like I'm trying to like put it too.
So nocturnal emissions is basically just like when a little boy or an adolescent boy, when he sleeps, he'll just have random like
Erections, right?
erections and ejaculate
Okay.
into his underwear, and that's always one of those things where it's like when that happens, you're like, oh man, I'm a man. I had these nocturnal emissions. So it's just like random things that
I wonder
happen.
if girls do have that though, but they just like, I don't know what the other like word for this would be, but like just get like wet down there.
No, I think that's just the female anatomy cleansing itself. For
Is it?
guys, I think it's just like it's a random thing that happens when you're an adolescent. We're dentists and a nurse practitioner, not in this field, so we're just talking off of memory, and we may sound really stupid right now, but this is just a conversation we're having. So,
I guess
but
we need to educate
anyways,
ourselves for our children.
right? I think sex ed wasn't until I was in 6th grade. We actually had a health class, and then there's a portion of the health class when we talked about sex education.
Oh, I didn't have health class until I was in high school, and that was more about like nutrition. And
Oh, yeah,
like,
we
there's
did
like
that
a
too.
section of sex and whatever.
Yeah, middle
Having
school,
a
6th
baby.
grade.
No.
And then that one you had to have your parents sign too, because they showed a cartoon intercourse. That was the most frightening thing I ever saw, because it was like, just imagine like a sagittal cut of like the vagina, like a woman, and then a man sagittal cut, and then it just showed this like penis with like going inside of the vagina, and I was like, what the frig is this? Like, this is crazy.
The hell?
Yeah. And then it showed like semen like going through like all the tubes and then just like going inside of the female. Yeah. Vegas was a little bit more liberal than your Catholic upbringing.
That is so crazy to me. Like, wait, was there any like movement or sound to this video, or was it literally just like?
I mean, there was like a narrator.
Was it literally like tink? Psh?
No, it showed like they talked about like the rubbing and stuff. Like it was straight up intercourse. Yeah, and it was cartoon. It was so weird. So yeah.
No, I never had anything like that. That is so weird.
So I knew sex like quite early in life. And then they also talk about like masturbation, and they talked about like sex and being careful with like sexually transmitted like infections. Actually, back then it was diseases, but they changed it to STIs.
Was that separate too between girls and boys, or was that together?
That was together.
That's so interesting to me.
Yeah. It's health class.
I find it so interesting, like, how different the education is for males and females, at least when we were growing up.
Yeah. For you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I mean, just like in general, even for you. Like, you know, they're talking about the male having an orgasm and all this stuff, but they never talk about the women doing that, or like the male masturbating. Did they talk about the girl doing that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, they talked
I take
about
it
like the
back.
clitoris
Oh,
and
okay,
like
I
how
take it
that's
back.
like an androgynous part of the female anatomy that can get someone aroused. Yeah, they did talk about
Oh, okay.
that. Yeah.
I take it back then.
Yeah. I mean, it was very comprehensive. Like by the end of this health course, you knew how to have sex, what to expect with sex, and the complication or the consequences of having sex, which is pregnancy, STDs, things like that. So like it was
crazy.
from 6th grade, I kind of knew like what that was. But what's funny is that I never had that conversation with my parents. They never brought it up. I
Wow.
bet you my parents probably thought that my sister and I were probably virgins until we moved out of the house. I don't know. Probably not.
Until we got married.
Yeah, until you got married. Like saved it for marriage type of thing.
Even
No
though I
offense
was
to anybody who
pregnant
did
before
that.
marriage.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, like I knew sex before it, and then like back then, like I had friends who like talked about like porno, and like I had friends who had sex. Like I think I knew like there was one kid that we knew who had sex in like the 8th grade, and it was like, oh snap, and I was like, oh man, I'm afraid of getting a girl pregnant. Like that was my first thought when I was thought about sex. I was like, I can't get a girl pregnant. And then like having to like get contraceptive, like they would hand like you can't just go buy condoms like at that age.
Right.
I mean you could, but people would look at you freaking weird,
Right.
So like there's no access to like condoms or anything like that.
Yeah.
So but yeah, by the time you were in high school, like everybody knew people were having sex with each other. Or at least doing sexual acts. Like there's so much crap that happened on our band trips, like it's not even freaking funny. Sexual things. Like in the back of the bus when we go on to like out of state for competitions and stuff. I mean, it was just like a part of like culture.
Oh, culture.
Culture, yeah.
Must be a Vegas culture thing.
It was a public school thing.
I was in public school for high school. Thank you very much.
Well, what was your experience with sex ed in high school?
Like I said, it was just a health class that was just food, like health, and then like there was like a sexual part of it or like a sex education part of it, but just the STDs, and I think it was a video of giving birth. That was it.
What?
Yeah.
We never saw that.
Yep. I think it was just to scare the
To
female.
scare you?
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that never happened with us.
Yeah. That was it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's different. I don't know what the sexual education like classes are these days, but I'm sure it's a little bit more progressive than what we had, or similar to what I had. But I think
or maybe
now,
just like a step down from what you had. Jeez.
no, because I think now there's a lot that goes into talking about sex with kids because kids are going through puberty a lot younger. We have a lot of these problems with consent, so I'm sure that they're trying to teach them, and then also 3. The whole sexuality and gender and finding who you are and your sexuality. I think that's very important. So I think sex education has evolved into a more, I guess, sophisticated course now over the course of like your education, where it's not just like a 6th grade health class.
Yeah.
Like it's incorporated almost into curriculums to build up to certain things.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know when our kids get to that point. I'm sure that we're gonna have to like start rehearsing how we have that conversation with our kids. But I think it's a conversation that most parents should prepare for.
I don't want to have that conversation.
Also, we're just gonna pretend like our parents.
It's not that I
talking
don't
about
want to. It's just like thinking about it now is like I'm not ready for that conversation.
True, and I'm
That's what I
sure we
mean.
have like we
Yes.
have a long time.
10 years.
10 years. Yeah,
Yeah.
at least.
Yeah, hopefully.
So yeah, so I mean that was my kind of background with sex.
Yeah, I didn't have that much of an experience.
Yeah.
I remember being very like curious about like because I didn't grow up with a dad, so I don't know what the male body was, right? So I think I was like kind of curious as to like that stuff.
Yeah.
But
Well, how did sex play into your relationships?
It didn't.
It didn't.
I mean, I didn't have a boyfriend until I was a senior in college. So, like, it just didn't. Because, you know, I didn't have relationships. So it wasn't, you know what I mean? And then by that point, it was kind of like, you know, obviously you make out with somebody and, you know, things progress a little bit and, like, whatever. But, like, I don't even know. No, I was on birth control because of, like, my periods and stuff. So, like,
You're
I think
protecting.
I was scared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was never that guy who carried a condom in his wallet.
Yeah.
You know, like some
you didn't
guys
expect
I
it
never
to,
expected it to happen. And I was back then, I was in, like, one relationship for, like, the longest time. And then I just never went on to, like, serious relationships with people.
Yeah.
And, like, went that route. So it was almost like I didn't have to worry about it,
right?
Basically. But I think one of the things that when you start to think about relationships, what's different is that, you know, not knocking on people who have, like, one night stands or who like hook up with other people, because if that's your thing, that's your thing, you know. But for me, it wasn't my thing. Like, I had a little bit more, like, respect for somebody before you jump to that, like, especially on, like, a first date or anything like that. I want to get to know you first before I get to know you and your body in the bed, right?
Right.
So I never, like, really, like, use that as an excuse to, like, get with somebody.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, just have sex.
Right.
Because I still had that fear of getting somebody pregnant.
Yes.
Like, still have that fear.
It's a smart fear to have.
Well, I mean, when it comes to the way some people, especially young adults who have kids so early, like, your future is just altered. Maybe, you know, for the better, because now you have responsibility.
In the long
caring.
run, it's better, but
yeah. But I think for me personally, it was, like, always a big fear to get somebody pregnant.
Yeah.
Like, at that young age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good, like I said, good fear to have, because then you aren't just, I don't want to say going around having sex with everybody, you know, but it just, you're more mindful of what that means, or, you know, just taking that responsibility too, which I don't feel like a lot of people think about. They just think about, oh, I feel good during this, or I, you know,
the pleasure.
This is exciting. This is, you know, whatever. And they forget that there's still consequences to those actions, like most actions.
Well, and I also feel like for me, it was more like an emotional thing too.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't just like, yeah, it felt good.
Right.
Like, the elation of just, like, the eroticism of sex. But I always felt like there was an emotional component to it too. That's why I didn't just, like, jump to it.
Right.
So, geez.
Sorry. It's been a long day.
What, I guess, so then what was your expectations with sex in our relationship?
It had better be good.
Goodness gracious.
I'm just kidding. I don't know. Like, expectations, what do you mean?
Like, when did you think that we would, like, do the deed?
I was very disappointed we didn't do it on our first date.
Damn.
Totally kidding.
Holy smokes.
Totally kidding.
I courted this girl over COVID, and all the first thing she wanted to do after a trail walk was just have sex.
Yeah, I thought we were gonna do it in our car.
Goodness gracious.
In the parking lot.
Oh my god.
Totally kidding. I don't think I had expectations, because, like you, I have an emotional component to it, and I wanted to get to know you. So, like, was there a connection there after we met and everything? Absolutely. But did I expect it to happen soon because we had that connection? We had that, like, 3 months or whatever to get to know each other? No. And if you said, Molly, I'm just not ready, or I want to wait, or whatever, I, like, would have respected that. I wouldn't have been disappointed.
That's fair.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, so.
And I think that we got to know each other so much on a deeper level because we didn't have that physical component in our relationship.
Yes.
So I think that was a little bit more important than like doing the deed.
Right.
But when we did do the deed, let me tell you about it. It was fucking amazing. I can't lie. It was pretty
It was
good.
pretty good. Yeah.
When I guess when we like got active in doing that,
Yes.
was it hard for you to talk about it
Like afterwards?
afterwards? Because you know how like some people like, you know, they're like, it could have
Yeah, it
been
was
better,
good.
or like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
I think me personally, I felt comfortable talking about sex with you.
I did
Even
too,
before.
and I still do, but like I will definitely say like I'm still a little timid about it.
Like reserved?
Yes.
Why? We're married.
I know, but like it's not. I don't know. Like no, I can't say like all the time or like whatever. I don't know. It's just that one of those conversations that I think people like sometimes have a hard time talking about, and like.
Well, that's what
It's
we're
not-
talking about today.
I know. And I see it. I'm like kind of quiet and like I don't really know what to say. It's not that I'm embarrassed to talk about it or anything. I think it's just one of those things that I'm like, yeah, okay. Like
you're like, you are like somebody who like keeps sex like under wraps. You don't like talking about sex.
I don't, but I like sex.
Well, yeah, obviously. We have 2 kids. We're gonna have 2 kids. Obviously, we like sex. I think that it's like still taboo for some people to talk about sex.
Yeah.
I think aside from making a podcast about it, we're very comfortable talking about sex.
I would agree. I would agree. I just like, I think I'm just like, I don't know what to say because I don't know, like, what am I supposed to say to our listeners? Like, I think that's where, like, I kind of, yeah, we're very open about it. I think I honestly, I still think I could be a little bit more open about it from my own perspective and reflection on it. Like, I think sometimes in the sense I could sometimes, sex is great. I'm not saying this. You know me very well and everything, but sometimes I think I could just be a little bit more open of being like, I really like that, or do it this way. You know what I mean? And I'm reserved from saying stuff like that. So I think that's where I'm getting like, where I'm like, I'm just a little like still kind of quiet about it.
I mean, we don't have to dive into everything that we like say or think.
Yes.
But I think it is healthy for couples to
Be open about that.
Absolutely. That. Because I think that's where some relationships maybe falter, is because the sex isn't great,
right?
You know, or maybe a partner can do something better this way. Then you have to express that, and I think that's what we're trying to get at with this whole conversation about sex, is that it doesn't have to be like this X-rated, like taboo kind of conversation, but like something about like,
and like, I hate the word, but like a porn conversation.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like that. No, it has to be like, okay, I have needs that I think you can fulfill.
Or you do fulfill when you do it this way, and I want you to do it like this more. Or if you do it a little bit like this.
Yeah, and not be afraid to say that, because,
you know, really good for me.
Yeah, and if anybody, I don't care who you are, like if you claim to be like the best like sex god or sex goddess, like you gotta freaking check yourself, because everybody's different, and it, just like how there's a puzzle piece will only fit one way, like
sex is kind of like
that. Mm-hmm. It just like, you have to have that conversation to like make something work, and I think that's where a lot of like relationships, maybe I'm just taking a whack at it. Speculating that some relationships have some trouble in them because either one, their sex life is not very good, and 2, because the couples don't take the time to talk about that.
I would agree.
Because they're afraid of, 1, offending the other person, or 2, that they are just scared to have that conversation. And I think you should.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, if you're a couple who has that trouble, like, try to be more open. And there is like this Instagram like couple that Molly kind of showed me, who are really, really good at kind of having like that sex therapy for couples, but they do it in such a professional manner. Obviously a lot better than what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
But it gives couples ideas on how to approach sex talk.
And they actually have a podcast that I haven't listened to. I didn't realize they had a podcast, but I bet that would be a good like thing to listen to. But they even have like courses, like, so if you are really struggling, like how to spice up the relationship. I like their Instagram because they will try to reenact like sex poses that are just like so
crazy,
ridiculous that you're like, this is never gonna happen, and they'll be like, this is not realistic. You know, the one that they did today was I think, was it the girl that was like upside down? So the guy was like standing against a wall or something, and the girl was upside down. So her butt was like where his...
Like doggy style?
Yes, but she was upside down. She was literally like handstanding it.
Oh, like twerking on the wall.
Yes, but he was in between like her legs, right?
She was twerking on his...
I was like, how is that even like...
Hey.
How? So that, you know, so they do like funny stuff like that to like show that this stuff is not realistic, you know, and just to make it a lightful conversation too. Yeah. And then they'll do, you know, just conversations, or the last thing they were kind of doing was how your partner initiates like sex. So like, you know, and sometimes it's like,
come over here, bitch.
Exactly. Like stuff like that. Or why was it one of them like where, you know, the wife's like busy in the kitchen, and, you know, the guy just comes up and starts rubbing against her, you know, and the wife's like,
what the hell are you doing?
Like, I'm busy, you know, so just like using the moments right and stuff.
Yeah,
so it's really funny, and it just like kind of lightens the topic, which I really like.
What are your thoughts on even changing the word sex life or sex as in the act of sex to intimacy and just the act of being intimate? I think there's like a
negative thing to sex, right?
Well, I don't want to say negative. I think it just sounds like, you know, when you think about, oh, let's have sex, and like it sounds dirty. Like dirty, like porno type. Yeah. But I was like, hey, I want to get intimate with you. As corny as it may sound to some people, like, I want to get intimate. I think that's just like.
Well, you were always like, let's make love, not let's have sex.
Yeah.
And I always like thought that was nice, like, because it kind of makes you go, oh.
It's just more than an act.
Well, and it was more intimate than let's just do the deed.
Let's bang.
Yes.
Let's bang. Wham, bam. Thank you, ma'am. Yeah. No, yes. I hear you.
So I do like that. It's just it's a change of thought, right? Or it's a change of
for sure.
Whatever.
Yeah. And I think that's what, like, I always feel that some couples, like, they're just like, okay, get it over with.
Yes,
know?
And
like,
I never want to feel that way.
Yeah.
And I never feel that way with you.
Yeah.
You don't either?
No, I don't. No, I don't feel it like that either. I feel that, like, we both kind of, like, get in that mood.
Yes.
And then we're just like, sometimes it doesn't even need to be said that we both just,
it's time.
It's time. Yeah. And we just like, hey. And we just know. And I think that's what every couple should have. Like, they should be comfortable to like be like that. Yes. You know what I mean? I'm gonna read a couple things that I saw.
I do like this,
on this thing. So they have this one. So want to talk about sex with your partner, and then they go through these different steps. So like, we'll kind of go through this real quick because I think it's kind of helpful, and then you guys we'll tag this couple on our social feeds too, so you can kind of look them up. But step 1 says break the ice with yourself. The first step to talking about sex confidently with a partner is getting comfortable with the topic yourself. So obviously, kind of getting comfortable about the idea of intimacy, what you do to take care of your intimate, like, your sex life and your pleasures and things like that.
Yeah, you have to know what feels good to you before somebody else can do that too, right?
Yeah.
But I also think, like, and again from like experience, is being able to say sex. You know what I mean? Like, and being able to say penis and vagina without being like a little 12-year-old girl or boy going.
And then like, yeah, no kidding. No, like seriously,
You know,
I want to like, we should play like for our listeners right now. Like, I want you to just say out wherever you are, listening to this in your car, at home, in your office, whatever.
Yes.
I just want you to be like, I like sex, or just say the
Baby.
word sex, just right now. Just say sex. And do you giggle? See you fucking giggle. Like, that's hard for some people. Obviously, it's hard for you.
Well, right now it's hard for me because like I'm slightly self-conscious and embarrassed.
Why? Because we're making this podcast?
Yes, and I don't know why. It's just me. It's just like I'm not the type of person to just like talk about like things that make people uncomfortable, and this is something that makes people uncomfortable. So now I'm just kind of like.
Well, we're gonna be more
this
comfortable.
This is the whole
people
purpose of this.
This is the whole purpose of this. So that's step 1. You want to read step 2?
Sure. So give a compliment. So once you're starting to talk with your partner, we want to do it nice and easy. So you don't want to be like, I really hate when you do this. No, it's I really like when you do this.
Yeah.
But or maybe not even but can we try this too, or this really feel things like that.
Yeah, and also like not like this is all about like trying to get into a conversation about intimacy and sex. So giving a compliment is like, oh hey, you look great today.
Oh yeah,
or,
yeah. Sorry,
hey,
I forgot about that.
Like, oh, your arms look really nice. Like, thanks. Like,
oh my god.
And like building up to that moment, it's like a baby's not gonna eat a steak right out of the womb. They're gonna start taking baby steps and eating breast milk, and then baby food, and then finger foods, and then a steak maybe down the road. So building up to that, giving a compliment is another way to kind of get that going. And then step 3, ask a positively rooted question. So when you're getting to that moment to start talking about sex or intimacy, talking about your sex life doesn't have to mean talking about the problems in your sex life. So just things about the good stuff first, like what makes you feel good, what you feel your partner can do to like help get the mood going, you know? So one of their...
And what they do well.
So like one of their conversation starters says, you know what I started randomly thinking about today? And then just like talking about like your favorite sexual memory or something that, made you feel good, stuff like that.
Or if it's too hard for you to start that, then kind of make them start it by saying, what's your favorite sexual memory of me or us.
Of us, yeah. And kind of talking about, like, I guess what your other partner has done to you that they can kind of like build off of.
And they even say like if it's hard for you to do it face to face like we are right now, it's okay to have that kind of conversation or start that conversation through text so that it's a little bit easier, which I like. Usually we're like, you should have these conversations face to face, but I feel like this one's like might be a little bit easier to like start that conversation
over text.
Via text.
Yeah.
And then step 4 is offer praise. So they're saying like a day or two after that conversation, loop back around them and let your partner know that you enjoyed talking about sex with them.